Let's bring in Hollywood divorce attorney David Glass for more on this. David?
People going through divorces are going through some of the hardest times of their lives, and a lot of what they're going through is emotional. And in any divorce, there's a huge sense of loss, and loss of relationship, of money, some friends.
We're back with another episode of the Hourglass Podcast, where family law and psychology intersect. I'm your host, David Glass, a certified family law specialist, former psychologist, and author of Moving On, Redesigning Your Emotional, Financial, and Social Life After Divorce. We're here to help those going through a breakup or divorce find ways to make the trauma of it all a little bit easier to deal with. Today, we have someone who knows all about mind games, Dr. Mark Goulston. This might sound like an out there question, but what goes on inside the mind of a gaslighter?
I'm glad you asked that. I have a radio show on UK Health Radio called Hurt Less, Live More. And what goes on in the mind of a gaslighter is the inability to hurt at all. So they can't endure hurt, and they will do whatever they can to avoid being hurt. And when they find vulnerable people that they can manipulate, not only can they avoid hurt, but they can inflict hurt. And sadly, a number of gaslighters, have other diagnoses like psychopath, narcissist, and they often take delight in taking advantage of people. There's a quote I once heard: people who can't take advantage of opportunity take advantage of people.
Interesting.
And a lot of gaslighters, because if you can take advantage of opportunity, you just take advantage of opportunity, and the world beats a path to your door. But a lot of these gaslighters, for whatever reason, they're not able to do that, but they've discovered that if they can take advantage of other people, maybe they can have some fun, and maybe they can get those people to do what they want them to do.
And so for a gaslighter, and I know that that's not a diagnosis, and we're just using it as a description to someone who inflicts this type of abuse on someone else, but is this a genetic or neurological situation, or is this something that someone acquires through their own experiences?
I'm a psychiatrist, and almost everything that goes on has a biological, psychological, and social component.
Right.
So there is nurture is the social component, nature is the biological, and psychological is kind of what you do in your head about those things. And a lot of times they've seen this with a parent. They've seen one parent take advantage of another. They've learned some of those habits. There are certain cultures where it seems to be part of it. Middle Eastern cultures, it seems like there's a lot of gaslighting back and forth, and so it can be all of those things.
Interesting. And so there are all sorts of pathological exes, ex-husbands, ex-wives out there. Are gaslighters considered to be some of the more dangerous sorts of exes out there, or does it really depend on the case?
It depends on the case, and by dangerous, are we talking that they will not stop it anywhere until they inflict harm or damage on the other person? Those are the dangerous people.
Right.
Whereas there are other people that are just cunning and manipulative and will do whatever they can to sort of get their way.
And so what about the victim of gaslighting? What happens to their brain as they're subjected to this abuse over a period of time?
Well, what happens is you start to doubt yourself, because gaslighters, they lie, they manipulate, they demonstrate compassion that's very slick and self-serving. And so you begin to doubt yourself and think there's something wrong with you. Something that I would advise your viewers to do is watch the movie Gaslight. And I think I'll share a little bit of it, because if you watch that, it will tell you everything you need to know about gaslighting and being gaslit. And in the movie, there are three main actors. There's Charles Boyer, there's Ingrid Bergman, and there's the hero, Joseph Cotton. And Ingrid Bergman plays this person who has a lot of neuroses, and she doubts herself. And Charles Boyer marries her because years before, he invaded the flat that they're going to live in, and the jewels were hidden up in the attic. So his main reason for marrying her was to get those jewels, and they call it gaslight because in those days, those flats were lit by gaslight lamps. And so what would happen is every night he would go up and he'd turn the lights on, so he's searching for the jewels, and the lights would go off down below. And she would say, geez, I don't know what's going on. The lights are going off. And he would say, oh, you need to rest. You just have to, you're too stressed. And so he was always trying to soothe her, and she was doubting whatever was happening. And the hero is a fellow named Joseph Cotton, and he adds things up, and it seems like nothing seems to be making sense. And why this is important is because if you're someone who's being gaslit, one of the best things you can do is check with your friends. Ask them, what do you think? And be very clear with them. Because there are people in your life who want the best for you. And they will point out to you, this doesn't add up. And also an important thing to do if you're being gaslit is don't ever focus on their words. Don't trust their words at all. Focus on their actions, because you might start to see things that just don't make sense.
Right, and so gaslighters are especially good with their words and with their affect and convincing their victims that they don't know what they're talking about, or they're too anxious, or they're too sensitive, or that what they're talking about just isn't real. But tell me more about their actions. What kind of actions should someone be looking for?
Well, their actions are inconsistent. Their actions are they'll push away any kind of responsibility or owning up to anything. If you confront them, they'll often get really angry, and if you just question them, they'll get angry. Something that might be of interest to your viewers and you is I was gaslighted a number of years ago. And I won't go into the details, but I was gaslighted by an assistant. And I'm very sympathetic. I'm a psychiatrist and all these things. And some things just weren't adding up. And then I had rented a suite, and then one of the other suite mates said, that person has been doing things to hurt your name. And I didn't want to believe it because this person was brilliant.
Right.
And then what happened is one day someone knifed my car, cut my name off the door, and I thought, look, I'm a psychiatrist. I see people who have issues, and I thought it was a ex-patient. And then everything added up to that. And then here's something I thought, if this person knows where I live, if I get a restraining order, it's going to be mincemeat. So here's something I realized, at least in this particular case, that if they had been doing this to me, they'd been doing it all their life.
Right.
Just like you can't be a little bit pregnant, you can't be a little bit of a gaslighter. And so knowing that, because all I wanted to do was get this person out of my life.
Right.
And so there was a day, and this was going to be the crisis day, and I told my wife to come in, and I say, stay in my office in case things escalate.
Yeah.
And so I met with this person, and I said, it's come to my attention that you've been doing some things that are harmful to me. And this person got all red in the face, and she said, well, who told you what? But I said, there's more than a few people, and I'm not going to tell you who they are. And also what I realized is you've been hiding things for a long time. And I did a search for what you've been hiding for years. And I hadn't done a search, but I was so clear that this has happened.
Right.
And I said, you didn't do a very good job of hiding things. And this person got very red in the face and said, "You're bluffing." I said, "If you have nothing to hide, you have nothing to fear. But if you have something to hide, and I'm not going to tell you what it is, you have a lot to fear. And all I want is for you to be out of my life in 2 hours. And if you do anything to hurt my reputation, anybody else that I care about, I'm not vindictive, but I will use everything I found, and I mean everything, and I will expose you. But all I want is for you to go, bye-bye. Well, you're bluffing. If I'm bluffing, that's fine, but out of here in 2 hours. And then I go back to my room, my wife's there, and I start hyperventilating.
Behind closed doors.
And I hear a window. I hear pictures breaking because, I owned all the furniture, or I leased it. Yeah. But, everything that was hers, she just smashed. And she said, "I can't be out of here in 2 hours." I said, "I'm aware that you have a few henchmen in your life. You can be out of here in 2 hours."
Right.
And then within 2 hours, she was gone.
Amazing.
And never heard from her. And the point is, given the internet and everything, if this person came back into my life, I would do a search and I would uncover all kinds of things. But I just thought that would be an interesting anecdote for you.
Oh yeah, very interesting. And for our viewers, that a preeminent psychiatrist can have this come into their life, and they were able to, I don't know if the word is fool you, they were able to get something over on you at least for a short amount of time before you started questioning it.
No, absolutely. Well, because we're sympathetic. I always be sympathetic with people helping me. If they were stressed out, I would be too understanding. I wasn't that great at holding them accountable. I was better at letting them off the hook. But I'm not as foolish as I was then.
Right. And in the end, you brought the fear factor down on them, and that's what got rid of her.
Yeah.
Now let me ask you, if someone who's a gaslighter came to the realization they didn't want to be that type of person anymore, and you can tell me whether that's even possible, but if they wanted to get help, is there a course of treatment they could go through?
Yeah, I think people that specialize, therapists who specialize in severe personality disorders. And so those are the borderline personalities. These are very destructive, impulsive people, but basically good people, narcissistic people, psychopathic people. But, there's a saying, people don't do what's important to them. They do what they care enough about. It's important for me to diet and exercise. I don't care enough about it to do the greatest job.
Right.
So what is it that would cause them to care enough? And I guess if you're a dyed-in-the-wool sociopath, having your son die from an overdose may not get through to you. But there are certain things that are just so primal that when it happens, something clicks in you and you feel, I got to fix this.
And then I guess the question becomes, how long does that feeling stay with them, or do they rubber band right back to the way they used to act?
Well, of course, there's a great tendency to rubber band back to the way they were, but if they can start to get a taste of turning a corner, and what I would do, I'm a retired therapist now, is I would get them to start noticing the difference in the way people are around them. I have this new radio show on UK Health Radio, Hurt Less, Live More. And on one of the shows, I said, here's my definition of a good person. And on our premiere show, I talked about Queen Elizabeth II being a good person. A good person is someone who is willing to hurt more so that the people they love and who are under their charge hurt less. And I went off on a tangent on this show. I said there were a number of people in the monarchy who just weren't able to hurt more.
Right. Right.
And so they would act out in order to hurt less, and it created all kinds of havoc.
Yeah. Amazing insight. And I particularly like that you shared your story about a gaslighter with us. Thank you so much for being on the show today, Dr. Goulston.
Thanks for having me.